And ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls of all ages, this is Tyler McKenzie here, lead pastor at Northeast Christian. I just washed my hands in that sink right there, promise you, with Peeps soap from last year. That doesn't mean I haven't been washing my hands since last Easter, I promise you. It just was kind of left over from last year. And I don't know why I'm talking about this, because tonight you are here to talk about COVID-19 and mental health, which I couldn't really think of a more relevant topic for us to be addressing right now. Now, before we jump into that and introduce you to some of our guest speakers tonight, couple announcements for you, Northeast Christian Church. First off, tonight we're also this will be our regular rhythm from this point forward. On Wednesday nights, every week for the foreseeable future, we're going to be dumping online adult content to you. We'll go Facebook Live. One of our teachers will address COVID-19 and some sort of relevant topic that you guys are dealing with on the ground. And then also, if you go to our website, necchurch.org/anywhere, that's /anywhere, you can find additional adult content on how to read the Bible, how to create prayer practices during this time, and a bunch of other stuff that I think you'll be interested in. Then on Thursday nights, that's tomorrow night, we're going to be pushing out stuff specifically for your kids. So anywhere from preschool to high school and in between, we will have specific content from our people that we're sending out to you so that you parents can be engaging with your kids regularly. So I'm super pumped about that. I'll go ahead and tell you right now that I am excited about what we're doing out in our adult lobby. Like if you haven't dropped off cans and peeked in the lobby, it's amazing. We've converted our adult lobby space into a food pantry. We packed up literally 150 boxes today of canned food that will all pretty much go out tomorrow, which means that the food pantry dwindles down just about as fast as it fills up. So if you can continue to donate to that, we'd be super grateful. It's going to individuals that we know that are in need. It's going to partner organizations that we know are in need. And that's a great way for us to continue to love the Ville. All right, that being said, last thing, I want to see you this weekend. Last week we started off a brand new series called Pandemic, how to be the church during a pandemic. And last week was kind of an overview. This week we're going to really get into the nuts and bolts of it. And I'm going to talk about how do we go through hard times well. Scripture has a lot to say about that. Specifically, I'm going to talk about unflinching resiliency, something the Bible tells us to have. So I hope you'll be there for that. All right, let me introduce our guest speakers and let's get down to business to start asking questions. Adrian, why don't you go first? Introduce yourself real quick.
All right. Hey, I am Adrian Feldman, the online campus pastor here at Northeast. You're probably seeing a lot of me online right now because it's kind of where I live. And that's about it, really, what I do.
Yep. And Brian, actually, I don't know how people are seeing it. I'm seeing Brian's beneath me in the way that I'm seeing it. So I'm going Brian, Adrian. So Brian.
My name is Brian Woodring. I'm a therapist with Freedom Counseling here in Louisville. I'm a Northeast member, Northeast stakeholder, and very honored to be with these two wonderful people tonight.
Thanks, Brian. I'm glad you're here. And if some of you guys are like, he looks familiar, it's because when we did a couple of our mental health series, it's about a year ago now, Brian helped sit on an expert panel and answer questions one day for our church, and it was great. So start sending your questions in right now, please, please. And while we're waiting on your questions, I've got a few questions that are queued in that I know people are asking. So here's the first thing I want to ask you guys. Is it okay for people to be struggling right now? There seems to sometimes be this stigma around mental health issues and spirituality. And I mean, I've heard it said from pulpits before, the idea that anxiety, fear, worry, these are sinful things that good Christians don't struggle with. So is it a sin to struggle?
Want me to take that?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. No, it's not a sin to struggle. If you have been at Northeast for very long, I'm sure you've heard us say that from the stage, like probably a million times. It's not a sin to struggle. It's not a sin to struggle. Struggling through something like this is a really super, and I'm sure Brian's going to say this, but this is a normal reaction to a really, really abnormal situation. And we sometimes get this really crazy idea in our heads that if you are faithful, if you are good enough, you're not going to experience anxiety or stress even, like, and that idea is just not rooted in Christianity. That idea doesn't exist. The idea that that it's not okay to feel bad when things are hard.
Absolutely, I would agree. If you look up the definition of struggle, you're making great efforts in the face of difficulties. And if this isn't difficult right now, then I don't know what is. Part of the difficulty or part of the problem can come is if those struggles start to take over and they control our lives. But, you know, if you, depending on what version of the Bible you read, when Jesus was in the Garden of Gethsemane, it said that he was distressed, that he was troubled, that he was sorrowful. And if he wasn't struggling with what he was getting ready to do, then I think if he was okay with that, then I think we're okay with struggling with this right now.
It's a good word. You know, I think that one of the most Jesus-looking things to do isn't to not struggle. It's to take your struggles before God and be faithful in the face of them. You know, it's not the fact that you're anxious or depressed or sad or angry, even with God, disappointed. These are all emotions that you see in the natural gamut of people who show up in the scriptures over and over. I mean, like, read the Psalms if you want to see like every piece of it, like every emotion out there on the spectrum, right? So it's
Right.
what makes somebody like faithful or unfaithful is what they then do with them. Job's life falls apart. He goes crazy. He's yelling, he's doubting, he's cussing, he's mad, happy, crying one moment. And at the end of it all, God's like, you did a good job, Job. You're blessed. Why? Why was he blessed? Because he always did it before God. Right? It's like the whole thing's a prayer. And even though he's angry, even though sometimes he's anxious and depressed, you know, it's all a prayer before him. So honestly, I think that what it boils down to is it boils down to faithfulness. That's the measure of a good Christian, right? It's not whether you have a mental health struggle. It's your willingness to be faithful in the midst of the struggle, right? In fact, those of you who are able to be faithful in the midst of the struggle, I mean, like that's inspiring to me. Okay, so next question. Let's see here. Okay, so this is a good one. I've gotten a lot on loneliness and on worry, because these seem to be two of the things that are popping up a lot. People are lonely because they have been taken away from their normal connection, and they're worried because the virus does continue to seem to get worse. So how can we alleviate feelings of loneliness and worry in a safe and healthy way?
Well, I think when we look at the worry, one of the things that I use whenever I'm working with some of my patients is what we call a worry journal. And as silly as this is going to sound, I'm going to encourage you to worry on purpose. And simply what you do is you spend about 15 minutes sometime during the day, not before bed. And I repeat, don't do this before bedtime. But you sit down for about 15 minutes and you sit down with a journal and you write out your worries. You explore it. You take it before the Lord. Is there anything that I can do about this right now? Is there anything that I can do about my stock portfolio? Is there anything I can do about not being able to work right now? Is there anything to do about fill in the blank with all of the worries and the anxieties that we have right now? You write them out, you journal them, and you present them to the Lord, and then you walk away. And later on in your day, whenever it pops back up again, because I guarantee that it will, you start to develop this message, this self-talk of, you know what, I've already worried about this today. There's nothing I can do about it right now. And I'm not going to spend the time and the energy on worrying about this. I'll look at it again tomorrow when I do my journal. You know, Jesus says in Matthew, you know, don't worry about tomorrow. Tomorrow's got enough troubles of its own. Take that time that we would be worrying and then go do something so that try to engage with somebody so that you're not lonely.
Matthew 6:34. Somebody write that in the comment section. Somebody copy and paste it out of their Bible app and put it in there. 33, 34. Those are fantastic, fantastic passages. It's interesting. You talk about Matthew 6. It comes in a larger segment of teaching that Jesus does from Matthew 5, Matthew 7, called the Sermon on the Mount. And he begins the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew 5, and also the Luke version of the Sermon on the Mount in Luke 6, with these interesting beatitudes. In Luke 6, he says, blessed are the poor, blessed are the hungry, blessed are those who weep. Like he calls those people blessed. Now in our society, hashtag blessed is healthy, wealthy, and prosperous, right? But in Jesus's cultural like mindset, it's like no, poor, hungry, weeping, persecuted even. And the question is why? Why would he say that about those people? Well, the reason why he says that is because what they find themselves in situations where they have to be completely dependent on God. Nobody would ever wish poverty or hunger or sadness and grief on someone. But the interesting thing is when you live through those, what you find is that you create space in your heart to just give up control to God. And so a lot of times my counsel to people who are worried is I'm like, it's not a terrible thing to be worried. This is an opportunity for you to cultivate trust and give up control, cultivate surrender and give up control to him.
Throw something really like practical out there when it comes to worry. I know a lot of us are, of course, glued to our phones right now. And there's this constant stream of news going and going and going. And I think it's a really good idea to give yourself permission to stop reading the news. Give yourself 1, maybe 2 times a day, set time on your calendar to read the news and find out what's going on, because you do need to know what's going on. But after that, shut it down, walk away from it. You don't have to have every news alert on your phone, and it will give you so much more space in your brain to think about other things and occupy yourself somewhere else.
Yeah, so I'm going to encourage everybody right now, share this. This is already such good content that I'm hearing from Adrian and Brian. Share this on your feeds and also start shooting some questions our way right now. We would love to answer your questions real time, live. All right. What about disappointment? Let's go there. Vacations, sports seasons, senior years canceled, businesses, which are people's dreams, are failing or dying slowly, shutting down. Lots of folks are facing unemployment right now. There's a lot of disappointment in life and in what the next few months hold for folks. How would you counsel them to deal with disappointment?
You want to take that first, Brian?
Yeah. This is difficult. There's no doubt about it. But I think one of the very first things that we can do is we have to acknowledge the disappointment instead of trying to push it away or anything. We have to acknowledge the fact that, you know what, I'm really bummed out right now. I'm really disappointed. I'm worried. I'm scared. I'm all of these things that we're talking about. It's normal. It's natural. I often say this with the people that I work with. When you try to normalize something, yet not minimize it, you don't feel so crazy. You don't feel like you're out of sorts. And then once you acknowledge it, then you kind of dig into a little bit and really ask why this bothers you so much. You know what? I really wanted to go on vacation at the end of May. I really wanted to play my senior year of baseball. I really wanted to fill in the blank with whatever, really get into what it is and understanding the thought process. Understanding goes a long way in working through it. And then if there's anything that comes up as you're going through those thought processes, and you kind of feel guilty because you feel a certain way about your vacation or your stocks or whatever, quote unquote, first world problems. And you're like, you know what? I feel really bad that I feel this way. People over in Italy are struggling 1,000 times worse than I am. Then forgive yourself. Acknowledge that and forgive yourself. And then, sorry, a little long-winded on this one. After you get done with kind of the thought process, then you go and you do something. Focus on others and avoid self-centered behaviors. Avoid being selfish. Journal of Clinical Psychology, research shows that people that go and do things for other people, their symptoms of anxiety and depression, they start to lessen. That's what we're doing here as a church.
He's going to love the veil on you.
Exactly.
That's who we are.
I knew you'd say it. And the other thing, Tyler talked about this on Sunday, practice gratitude. One of the things, just practicing that art of gratitude helps to take the focus off of ourselves and acknowledging that, we really are blessed and we can move through this, and then be hopeful about the future. This will end at some point in time. Obviously, we don't know when. The uncertainty is present, but be hopeful. We have to make loose plans about the future, make loose plans about a vacation later on. Necessity is the mother of invention. Figure out something else to do. This is going to be temporary. and it will help to adjust those disappointments a little bit.
Yeah. Yeah. I love the word on gratitude. Just to bump back to that, I have found that most people tend to gravitate right now or during any hard times to one of the two extremes, to despair and disappointment. The world's falling apart, or my world's falling apart, or doomsday prophecies, let's post all of them and get all the toilet paper, or on the flip side, they go into denial mode and they just refuse to acknowledge the problem at hand, which denying it, like you said at the beginning, you got to acknowledge it. Denying it does no good. So I think there's a center ground that's active gratitude. You can be grateful for what we still have, because for most of us, this is first world problems, or this is just a season. There are people throughout history and throughout the world right now who are really struggling, and you can also be grateful for what we once had that we may one day have again, because a lot of us took for granted some of the amenities and things in life, securities even that we had before now that God blessed us with. Okay, we're not guaranteed any of that. We're not guaranteed another breath, but He's given us that. So I don't want to like wag my finger and say, be grateful, because that doesn't feel right. But use gratitude as a practice to actually lift your spirits up out of disappointment. Okay, let me jump to another question, unless you got something on that, Adrian.
I don't have anything to add, really. I just want to throw in one little phrase that somebody said to me once that has always helped me. Like when I'm feeling really down on something and it's a really hard thing, or if I'm grieving the loss of something, like I can definitely relate with people who've had big events that they prepared for that are just flat out canceled now, right? Like some of those things we're losing completely, and that's going to hurt. Somebody told me once, it's okay to feel sad. It's okay to grieve that loss, but don't unpack and live there. It's okay to spend some time in that space and process it as long as you need to, but then it's okay to get up and move on too.
I see right now, my friend Amanda Porter is in the comment section thanking us for offering this forum. Thank you, Amanda, for the coaching that you've given me on mental health and preaching on it and teaching on it in a church context. I think Becky does Becky have the link to this? Adrian, did you send that?
Yep.
Becky, will you throw the link to Amanda's online course for anxiety? Amanda's a professional that works up in Cincinnati, Christian woman, good friend of mine, trust her inherently. She's making her course on handling anxiety absolutely free for anyone who wants it right now. There's a coupon code and a website. Just go there and jump all over that content. Some of you got some free time on your hands. I think it would actually help. Now, speaking on anxiety, we had a question come in from somewhere, from someone who is in the healthcare field. And they said, what would your practical suggestions be for individuals working in healthcare who are struggling with anxiety? Wow. All right. Can I say this first? To the healthcare professionals out there, I want you to know, thank you. Yes. We do not underestimate or undervalue the sort of sacrifice and risk that you are putting out there for your community every day. That's why Northeast has sent about 1,000 pizzas your way, and we will keep them coming. I'm not sure if pizza is the most healthy thing to fuel you, but sometimes I don't know. Is this good for you? Is this good in the book? Like
language of
love. Comfort food's good. So we're sending you to pizzas, man, because we love you and we really do appreciate you. And if you appreciate a healthcare person, man, throw it up for them in the comments section. But what would you suggest our healthcare professionals do deal with anxiety?
That's definitely a Brian question.
That's in that field. It's going to be, I can't imagine how much anxiety is in a hospital every single day. I think part of it is going to come down to what we end up doing with it. I think part of it is there's a natural anxiety, a natural anxiety for all of us is something is going to happen. We know this is coming. It just depends on where we come in on the spectrum as this natural anxiety, like we have an upcoming surgery or something like that. I think part of the struggle that a lot of us have right now is what we call this parasitic anxiety. And it's, you hear parasitic, you hear the word parasite, and it sucks the life out of you. And that parasitic anxiety is all around us right now. It's not an issue as to whether or not something bad can happen, because it can. But the difficulty, or how we challenge that is it's the meaning that we give to what often amounts to unprovable assumptions about what's happening. And if we feed that parasite of, oh no, this could happen, this could happen, this could happen, it limits our ability to love on others. It can limit our ability to care for others because we're worried. And again, I'm not saying that these things can't happen, because they can, but when they start to take over and they start to suck the life out of us, then we have a problem, and we really have to challenge that anxiety. From a mental aspect, the other piece of it is, of course, and I know you guys know this, especially if you're in the healthcare field, is when you're not at work doing everything that you can to self-care, whatever that looks like. And obviously a lot of our options for self-care are limited. The gyms are closed, and the gyms are closed, and the gyms are closed. And so, you know,
I need my gym.
and so it's like, that's a stress reliever for a lot of us, you know. So what do? We've got to improvise. We have to take care of ourselves, but our resources are limited right now.
Can I jump in there real quick, Brian?
Yeah.
That's a great thing you just brought up here. And this will help answer the anxiety question for healthcare professionals and a lot of other people. We had this question right here. What can I do to keep myself emotionally healthy now that my typical routines have been disrupted? Working out, meal planning, connection with people, daily showers, etc. Like what do we do?
It's hard to do all that stuff when you are at your house and it really doesn't matter. I was joking with somebody earlier today about how I don't have to fix the back of my hair anymore because you can only see the front of my hair on the webcam, right?
That's a great point.
And so I had to go through you also don't fix the back of your hair, both of you. Yeah, it's not necessary anymore. But one of the things that I realized personally that I had to do was kind of go through my day and say, what thing would I normally be doing at this time? Is there a way I can translate that into the reality that we're living in right now? I don't want to say find a new normal, because this is not normal. This is not going to be normal, but it is reality right now. This is where we live right now. So for me, that looks like getting up on time in the morning and taking a shower and fixing my hair. And instead of driving to work, I go for a walk around the block, and then I come back in and I do work at my desk. You know, it's trying to translate everything that was part of your routine before all of this started into something that you can still do now, because there are options out there. I mean, there are like a million workout programs on YouTube that you can look up and do, and some of them are really super fun.
Absolutely. I think when it comes to physical fitness, it's something that I'm super into. I'm thankful to be a part of a gym that has continued to provide online digital programming that you can do at your house, and it's still really compelling stuff. But like Adrian said, there's tons of programming available online, where literally in your living room, in your garage, or outside, man, go get some sunshine on a day like today. Outside, you can go and still get your exercise workout routine in. And it may not be quite like what it was, but it's something. It's something. And getting that sweat on, you know, is going to make you feel better. So if you need accountability, have a FaceTime workout buddy. Like, seriously, do it. I know people who are doing that, but you can still get it in.
Something I wanted to add to that real quick is, well, two things actually. One, with what we're talking about, what better time than now to develop a routine, since our routines are messed up. You know, so often in our busy, hectic lives, I don't have time to work out. I don't have time to eat healthy. I don't have meal prep. I don't have time to meditate and do breathing exercises and spend more time with God. A lot of us do now. Some of the excuses have kind of been taken away. And then when life returns to normal, and again, I've said this before, and life will return to normal, we can then start to incorporate those into our daily lives, which will be a little bit different than what they were before all this happened. The other thing I wanted to say real quick, with all of this disruption of routine and stuff, and I really need, and this is for everybody, that may be struggling with, that may already have a mental health struggle. If you are already seeing a therapist, if you are in treatment, if you are taking medication, now is not the time to stop. Are those things a little more difficult right now? Absolutely. But now is not the time to stop those things. You have to stay. Those are things that are imperative. Those things cannot be disrupted. I know a lot of providers, I know myself, and I know a lot of providers just around the state are rapidly, as fast as they can, getting into telehealth and doing, treatment like that, because we're encouraged to, limit the traffic and whatnot in our offices. If you're watching this Facebook Live right now, you're already doing telehealth. It's not scary. It's not difficult. Please don't let that part of your life, that part of what you need, that part of self-care be disrupted.
Yeah, you talk about developing new routines. So some of us haven't, but some of us have found ourselves with a little bit of unanticipated disruptive margin, is what I would call it. Disruptive margin. We live in a culture of overload, but now all of a sudden we find ourselves in a culture of quarantine, and there's this open space and we have no idea what to do with ourselves. So I've got a few ideas with you. I called them in my sermon this past weekend, disciplines of disengagement, because rather than engaging in more stuff, you're actually disengaging from the day to day, trying to get to know God and also be introspective with yourself. So things like prayerful reading of the scripture. That is a fantastic habit to pick up right now. Or just prayer or scripture. That's why the other adult content we're pushing out to you guys right now is teaching you how to pray and how to study the Bible. Because across the mental health gamut, any Christian professional or Christian person who struggles with this will tell you the exact same thing. Scripture helps. It does help. It helps some more than others, but it helps. It helps you because it reminds you of truth. Okay, one thing that mental health issues do to you is they lie to you about who you are and about who God is. And prayerfully meditating and reading through the scriptures recenters you on who God says he is, on who God says you are, and ultimately on how that is the reality that we live in. So I think that, man, developing a scripture or a prayer habit right now could be vital, not just to your mental health now, but to your mental health down the road.
Yeah. Agreed.
Okay, another question here. It's 8:26. We'll take a couple more. Okay, so here's a good one. What would you say to people who are angry with God right now? Who are angry with God?
I would say he can take it. I think a lot of times we feel like guilty for that feeling, but he can take it. God is big enough to handle all of those frustrations and worries and the anger that you're experiencing. I was thinking earlier today about Psalm 13 when David is like super struggling, but at the beginning when I read it, I'm just like, God, he's yelling at God. Where are you, God? Why aren't you here? But the real beauty of what happens through these Psalms is that he's angry and he takes that anger to God. And I can't think of a better way to show God that you trust him than to take him that thing that you're angry with him for. I don't think that we would take our anger to God if we didn't believe there was any sort of benefit to that relationship with him.
Yeah. To get theological with you, that this question, the anger question, oftentimes underneath that is the philosophical question of why would a good God allow people suffering in the world? And so just from a theologian's perspective, for just quick hitting, okay, you should know that one, every religion and every worldview has dealt with the problem of suffering in the world for thousands of years. So we're not going to settle it here in 30 seconds on a Facebook Live video. But here's what I can tell you for sure. Why is this all happening? Why is there pain, suffering? Why are there hard times? Well, I can tell you why it isn't. It isn't because God doesn't care. At least if the Christian version of God is true. Because what we see in Jesus is that God does care, that God actually suffers with you. In fact, God walks into the ultimate suffering for you. And so my mindset is this, man, if God is willing to walk into the ultimate suffering for you in Christ, he is walking in your daily sufferings with you. So maybe a better question than why is this all happening is, well, what should I be doing about it? Or how should I be responding with Christ to it? But I love what Adrian said. And again, this is just what you see in a lot of the characters in the Bible. They take their stuff to God. Take it to God, but also know that God's standing in the fire there with you, man. He's suffering right there alongside of you. What else you guys got? All right, so let me ask you another question here. We got this question from somebody online. I think this one's a pretty good one. They said, let me find it here. It was about their kids. It was a good one. Okay, how can we help our teens who are stuck at home, who feel disconnected, who have kind of had, their school year or their sports season's ruined. How can we help them get through this and even help them with connection online? They call it online contact. So how can we help?
So on a spiritual side, you got to give them so much grace, and more grace, because they are hurting so much. I think it's kind of weird that we're in this cultural moment where everybody is hurting. Everybody is hurting. And so you have to remember, just like from a parenting side, hey, they're in pain, and what you might see looks like surly or outbursts or whatever, but like just so much grace for them in those spaces.
Yeah, that's a good word. Don't minimize it either. I think a lot of times your temptation is to be like, oh honey, don't worry, 5 years from now you'll see that what you're upset about is just so small in the grand scheme of things. Look, that might be true, but that's not true to them right now. And that makes them feel like you're actually diminishing their pain. And that's going to be the last time they ever talk to you about their mental health struggles. So I would say don't diminish it. Listen to it. What were you going to say, Brian? I'm sorry, I cut you off.
No, that's good. I was going to say too, I think that this can actually be in spite of all the struggles that they have, I think this can be a really good time to try to connect with them. They understand more than maybe younger children do. And so being able to talk about and openly discuss, maybe on a little more of an adult level, of what disappointment feels like and what it's like, and acknowledging the fact that you as a parent may be nervous, scared, whatever the case may be, but setting the tone for them, that they know that, okay, mom and dad feel the same way too. They're not these terrible, horrible people that we always thought that they were, that they have feelings too. We've got to kind of set that tone for them. I often go back to the whole example of when you're in the airplane and the oxygen mask drops from the top, you put it on yourself first. So as a parent, you put it on yourself first. And that way you're able to help your teens, your little ones, or whatever. They're following your lead. And again, like with the teenagers, you can possibly really use this time to connect in a way that when they were distracted with sports and with school and everything else, that maybe that wouldn't have been there.
And then the digital connection question, that's a tough one, because there are a lot of things online that aren't necessarily safe. But I know with my own kids, and now they're not teenagers, so they don't care if I'm like hovering over their shoulder while they're on their video calls. But, I have seen so many opportunities for my kids, especially to call some of the older members of our family who they maybe haven't been able to have such close relationships with, like, or even myself. I've called my grandma like way more times in the last week than I normally do, because I know that she's feeling isolated, but I see my kids calling their grandparents too, and know they want to call their friends. And I think that this is a good moment to let them get on FaceTime, have those conversations, because that digital connection, even like what we're doing right now, it's still connection, and it's going to help.
That's right. One more time, I would tell you guys, if this stream has been helpful to you, you think it'd be helpful to the people that you're following, share it, because we know tons of people are dealing with mental health struggles. And we believe that the holistic approach of Christianity to dealing with mental health is a powerful one. All right. Somebody said, how can you prevent burnout and maintain creativity and productivity when working at home? It feels like I'm constantly accessible, constantly working. You're not going from the office and home and back. It's this weird melding. So it sounds like to me, this person is dealing with like this constant pressure to be on the job, because now all of a sudden the job has invaded his home space. Any ideas there?
There's just like tips that I'm implementing in my own world right now, because I like to work, and I am kind of happy to be on call at all hours of the day, but I also know that it's important to have boundaries, and it's important to make sure that I am showing up and spending time with my family. I love them. They're my first ministry. Like that's where I want to be. And so one thing that I have done, and not everybody's going to have this opportunity, but one of the things that I've tried to do is choose a part of my house where I work. And when I'm done with my workday, I walk away from that space and I don't go back. And also I have tried to kind of guard my days off, because it can be really, really easy to just, answer this one text, or help with this one technical problem, or do this one little thing. But then the next thing you know, it's been 2 or 3 hours and you were supposed to be with your family, or you wanted to be with your family and you spent it doing work. Because a lot of us, I think, identify with our work. And so we want to prove that we can be really, really productive employees at home. And it's good to give that space to take care of yourself.
Yeah.
I would agree with what Adrian's saying. Creating that space, whether it is a physical space in the home, or, one of the advantages, I guess, of working at home is if you have the ability, unless you're on like a conference call or something, get up and walk away, go outside, dodge the raindrops and walk around outside and then come back, which is something that you may not be able to do if you're stuck in the office, so to speak. And again, I have to reiterate what she said as far as setting boundaries. Boundaries are critical. You have to figure out where you end and someone else begins. And sometimes that's really difficult to do, but this is, I don't have anything else to give, and it's okay. It is, there's nothing wrong with it. It's not being selfish. It's healthy. And especially with what we have going on, it's absolutely necessary.
I wish we had all night to go do this. We may need to do another mental health episode here on our Wednesday night studies to come back, because the questions are still rolling in. And I feel like this content is so practical and helpful. So thank you guys. Y'all in the comment section, please be sure to thank Brian and thank Adrian for giving us their time and their pastoral and professional insight. So valuable. This is where I would like to end. A couple things. One, we're going to drop some resources in the comments. It'll be at the bottom of the comment section. These are resources that Adrian, Brian, and I feel that could be really helpful for you. So I think Becky's helping us host. Thank you, Becky, so much for giving us some of your time tonight as well. Copy and paste that in there for us now, if you don't mind. Feel free to jump on those resources. And if you need more resources, reach out to me or Adrian on Facebook or via email. We'll be able to connect you and help you out with that. I will leave you with this. I think that one of the best ways to get through hard times is to continually try to find purpose through it. Don't allow it to suck the purpose out of the moment or suck the purpose out of your life. Continue to try and find a purpose for yourself there. And I think that God is very, very clear with us in what our purpose is as followers of Jesus. And that is to pour ourselves out in cross-shaped love for other people. So a very, very easy way to start, to allow some life to begin to seep back into your soul, is engaging in some of the Love-the-Ville activity that we're doing for our community right now. I know this sounds like a shameless advertisement, but this is not a shameless advertisement. I believe this is the very purpose of God, y'all. I do. And I think that the compassion that we're pouring out during this moment as a church is going to be remembered, or it's going to have 100x the impact. But we've been doing this Love-the-Ville stuff for 5 years. All of a sudden, we've been doing the same stuff that we have been doing, and everybody's like, wow, this is so amazing. Why? Because people are desperate right now. They're desperate for love. They're desperate for connection. They're desperate to know that somebody's out there and somebody cares and somebody has their back. All right. And I'm going to go ahead and tell you, it has fueled my soul to be a part of a movement of people that are doing that. So I would encourage you right now, engage in a healthy local church like Northeast. Get your hands dirty in loving actually keep your hands very clean. Clean hands. Keep your hands clean, but figuratively, metaphorically, get your hands dirty in doing the love of Christ. All right. And I think you'll find great purpose in that. All right. Thank you guys. We're still collecting cans. I'll say it. Thank you guys. And hopefully we will see you guys this weekend. And for those of you with kids, we'll see you tomorrow night when we launch some content for you all. But thanks again. That's all I got. You guys got anything? Going once, going twice? All right. Love you, Northeast.
Bye.